Hello, welcome back to episode 4, vlog number 4, podcast number 4, confessional, diary, book of revelations. This is becoming for me. Even just listening back to some of the older episodes, I'm realizing how vulnerable this podcast has made me, how connected it's made me to myself and to other people who listen to it and watch the clips on various social media, how important it actually is already and how much it's captured, and also how much I'm starting to cherish it, this space. So thank you everyone who's been tuning in. I'm going to jump right in a way that I don't normally, with a quote from the good book. As you know, we've got this book of quotes. This one came sort of completely randomly in an episode of The Sopranos. I've just started watching it. I've never seen it before. My partner has seen it, loves it, has bigged it up massively, and I finally started watching it. I'm on episode 3 and I'm loving it. And yesterday there was a quote in it that this ruins the show in no way if you've not seen it. The main character is sat outside of an admissions hall of a university while his daughter's being interviewed to go into the uni, and he looks up on the wall and this quote is written on a plaque. "No man for any considerable period can wear one face to himself and another to the multitude without finally getting bewildered as to which may be the true." It's Nathaniel Hawthorne. It's cited in season 1, episode 3 of The Sopranos, and it's 50 minutes in if you want to go and see it for real. That quote hit me yesterday and it's been in my heart ever since. The sun came out today. What a blessing the sun coming out is. I mean, the sun hasn't been out for weeks. I legit thought I was getting proper depressed, and it turns out I just needed to do some photosynthesis. Went for a walk in the sun, hit the back of my optic stems with some UV light, and sort of went walking with this quote in my head and on my heart. And it sort of took me back over the past 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks since the last episode. And it reminded me what I was doing Valentine's Day, Saturday 14th. I had a gig for Sofar Sounds here in Leeds, and it was really beautiful. It was an archive. For anyone who's not been to a Sofar Sounds before, I definitely recommend you sign up. It's free, and you can just buy tickets for these hidden, intimate shows with, 3 artists on the bill every time, hidden venues. And we were performing an archive with 2 other artists on the lineup. And I was putting the set together. And because it was Valentine's Day, I started thinking about love and thinking about when I was taught about love in Catholic school. I promise this tangent I'm on is going somewhere. And we were taught about eros, agape, and philia as forms of love. But what I didn't know is that there were so many others. One of them, philautia, is the kind of love you can feel for yourself, self-love, self-worth. Another one is ludus, which is playful love, like flirtatious, silly, banter. And I was thinking I would theme my set for Sofar around love. I would pick songs from my back catalogue that sort of speak to different forms of love. And I did Belief for philautia, for self-worth and self-love. I did Sleeping on My Own for eros, which is passionate love, romantic love. I'll Be Around for agape, which is unconditional love, the kind of love that you feel for your family, or you might feel for, anyone really. There's no conditions on it. It's eternal love. And I definitely feel that for certain friendships and relationships in my life. But also I sort of extended its interpretation to talk about the kind of love you can have for the person you've been, that you can look back on yourself as a child, you can look back on yourself as a teenager, I think. And you can actually feel unconditional love for that person. And finally, ludus was for headstrong, which was like song, flirty song. And as I thought about it, I realized so many of the songs that I write, really, it does just boil down to love, all the different forms of it. And in relation to this quote that's about the versions of ourselves that we've been for other people, I'm realizing that theme of coming back to who you are and coming back to the truth of who you are has kind of been running through all of the music I've always written. And on the album, at the moment and the songs that I've been writing, I think I'm coming closer and closer to some of the biggest truths of my life. And that's probably why this album has felt so liberating to be writing. But when I put this set list together for Sofar Sounds, and as I was working my way through, I could feel something close to like, I hope this sounds the way that I mean it to, something close to like my soul, my real soul's purpose. And maybe that feels a little bit too deep for this platform, but it's the truth. It's the truth. I really felt it aligned with who I think I actually really am. And I think I've learned in my life to be, you know, more guarded and more careful and logical. Oh gosh, logic. I've held on to logic in my life quite tightly, and reasonable, being reasonable. And I think this year, certainly as the album is coming into fruition, can feel a sort of disgust that's happening whenever I kind of step into these sort of personas that I've in the past played. And I think when I saw that quote, you know, this quote that says, for any considerable period, you can't really wear one face for yourself and one face for others without starting to get confused between which one is the true you. And I think I've been coming back to this truth of who I really am. And actually, it's been so empowering to say, is this true? Is this really how I feel? Is this really what I want? And sometimes being really confused, not sure, actually. It doesn't feel like what I want, but it feels familiar. You know, it's been an interesting 2 weeks. I was in the studio with Tom Pendergrass, big up Tom, working on a new song. Actually, I thought we were going to go and work on Don't Look Down, but his studio's being refurbished at the moment, so we can't do any final stuff on that. So we started writing some new music and again, started thinking about love. I started thinking specifically about my stepdad. At my mum's wedding, when she got remarried, I was asked to do the father of the bride's speech because my mum's dad, my granddad, passed away quite a while ago now. But my mum asked me if I would be up for doing it instead, and I was really honored to do it and nervous to do it. And I started thinking about their relationship and how I knew that these two people were a good match and when I first felt that. And I thought very clearly of a moment growing up. My mum, oh gosh, my mum, we'd come into the kitchen from school and she would be just like dancing around the kitchen, sometimes to music, sometimes not to music, just singing and vibes in and cooking. And she had this theory that when you're cooking, you're supposed to have music. You're supposed to have like a vibe going, you know, because that energy ends up in the food. And I really, really believe that. Very rarely cook without music and very rarely cook without singing. It's just, you know, I think it's really important to have good energy around when you're preparing things for other people. I think that's true when you're like coming up with ideas, when you're building things, you know, maybe, you know, who knows how true that is, but spiritually for me, I have to say it feels right. And my mum would grab us, we'd come home from school, she'd be like trying to get us to dance with her and we'd be like teenagers and awkward. I'm like, Mum, leave me alone, you know, you're so weird, why are you doing that? You know, singing and dancing to nothing, you know, just the music in your heart. You know, fast forward now to my mum when she was first seeing Mark and I walked in, I'd come up to Sheffield to visit her. They knew I was coming, but they didn't know I'd arrived. I like opened the back door and Mark and my mum were stood in the kitchen dancing and singing with each other to no music, to just them. And I guess, I don't know, that image is just stuck in my mind. I ended up mentioning it in my speech because I guess that's like, I don't know, that's something that I just think is so wonderful about when you find somebody that you really love and you can just be not only your weird true self with, but also they share that weirdness, that uniqueness with you, and you can just get lost in it together. And so I don't know, I had that on my mind going into the studio after the gig about love and after, you know, thinking about love. And so I started writing about that. I started writing about dancing to no music with somebody who you love. And it was, yeah, it was beautiful. It was a very easy song. I don't know as of yet whether it's going to end up on the album or not, but I just had a really beautiful writing session, and thinking about love has just been a really beautiful thing to be doing for 2 weeks. The other thing to say is that over the past 2 weeks, I've been working on the album, working on some studio stuff. And I also spent a week working on a new theatre show for Royal Court in Liverpool that was brought in to sort of work on what's called an R&D, which stands for research and development, where, they workshop a bunch of different ideas, and it's to develop this show that was a film into a stage show. I'm not sure if I can say what it is yet, so I'm just keeping it at that. And, I got to work with some new actors this week and develop the music. And, I'm a full-time musician, so all of my income comes from either singing and performing my own music or writing music for theatre. And I had a beautiful week, and I really enjoyed it. Being honest, spending a week working on theatre stuff is so beautiful, and I love doing it. We're also doing a casting in the background for another show for a different theatre, and that was running through the week. And, it was full on. But if I'm being honest, what happens to me every time I spend like an intensive period of time on theatre work is the critic comes in and goes, shouldn't you be working on your album? And shouldn't you be doing whatever? Which is funny because it doesn't happen the other way around. When I'm working on the album, no critic comes in and goes, shouldn't you be working on your theatre stuff? Even though I should also be working on theatre stuff while I'm doing that other stuff. And, it had been miserable weather all week, really miserable. And I came to the end of this week feeling a bit like, feeling a bit inconsistent. I think no matter how well the week goes, no matter how good you are, it's very easy to get into a place where if you're not consistently working on all of the different things that you do or could be doing, and this also applies to domestic life, like making sure that you've done all the washing and that you did the food shop and that you've, done that composition that you needed to do and that you finished that piece of work and that you booked to do your dance class or go to the gym or do whatever, that if you don't do all those things and tick all those boxes as you're supposed to, that it, again, like I was saying last time, it's easy to see the failure. And what I've been trying to hold in my mind is something that actually my brother's partner, Frida, said at the beginning of the year. My brother, who is an ex-professional footballer and a coach and a very motivated individual, on New Year's Day, sat round the table with us all, said, right, what is everybody pleased that they did, this year, not work-related? And Frida, his partner, said something wonderful that has stayed with me ever since. Frida had a habit that she wanted to build, a health thing that she wanted to build into her life. And it's the kind of thing that she wanted to be doing every day, but she kept falling off the radar with it. And so she told herself that she just had to do this thing once a week. If she did it once a week, that would be all good. And she did. And then what happened naturally over time was that she just kind of started going, she'd think about it in the middle of the week, and then she'd do it twice a week. And then slowly over the course of a few months, she ended up doing it every day. Perfect. And she said, if I ever didn't do it, I'd just say, well, I've still done this thing more than I've ever done it before. And I've been keeping that in my mind, like last week when I didn't do this vlog because it didn't feel right to, and I kind of got caught up in things in the day and didn't end up doing it. When, I'm away for a week and I'm working on another job and I haven't done the work on the album that I've wanted to do or booking the gigs that I've wanted to, it's being able to say, but I turned up for myself last week so many times, more than I ever have. I was consistent last week. And it's not like being in AA where if you relapse, then you're starting from zero. Not to compare it to addiction, but just to say that you're not starting from a clean slate just because you miss a day. You're just adding to the days you've already built up. And that has been really helpful to view it that way for me. Which brings me to another quote. Keaton, the very wise Keaton, who got a lot of praise actually for what he said that I quoted last week or last time. We went for dinner. I was in London for auditions for this other show, and we met up for dinner, and he was talking about his own life and his own own lessons that he's learned since we last caught up. He's a very wise person. And he said this. Keaton said this, and it went straight in the book of quotes, went straight in the good book. Keaton said, I thought that the lesson in life was to put yourself out in the world, but I'm realizing that it was to put yourself out in the world and stay there. And it hit me. It was like, yes, Keaton. He said that on the 11th of February, 2026 at dinner. So there you go. Wisdom entered the universe via him on that day. The lesson is to put yourself in the world and stay there. That's the hard stuff. It links to the thing that I was saying about vulnerability and being, being true to your real voice, is that sometimes it is hard to stay there. It's hard to stay in a wholehearted place where you're truthful. You slip into old habits, or you slip into old masks and old suits because they're easy to do. I mean, you built them that way so that you could just slip into them for protection, to be invisible, to be seen differently than the way that you really are. But the challenge isn't just to show up in the world and then disappear. The challenge is to show up in the world and stay there. And that's hard. That is difficult because it's so easy to slip out of it. And then once you do that, to give yourself a hard time, which makes it harder to go back into being seen again. So I think going into this week, that's what I'm doing. I was hoping this week, while I was working on this project, I would also be booking gigs in the background. And, I'd be Mr. Independent Artist, popping off left, right, and center, booking gigs, booking festivals, arrangements and underscores in the meantime, and not being burnt out somehow at the same time. And, I'm arriving today in the truth that I am but one man. I'm a human being. Who knew? And I'm capable of so much in a single week. And actually, I put out all my emails the week before for venues. They've got back to me, and tomorrow I'm going to pick them up Monday fresh. So, this is a lesson for me. So it's an offering to you if you need it, that if you didn't do it today, if you started yesterday and you didn't do it today, if you started last week and you didn't do it this week, that you can pick it up anytime, and it's still more than you've ever done it in your life up to this point. We're just adding beans to the pile. And so I guess I'm inviting myself this week, all of us, into more unconditional love, more agape and philautia, self-love, kindness, really. And to see every move towards your truth and towards what we really want to do and what we want to happen as a victory, as a step towards it, yes, but also a victory within itself. To have turned up, to have shown ourselves in the world and stayed there. It's another move towards that visibility and the truth. It's good to bear that in mind. I am booking more gigs. They're going to be announced very soon, and I can't wait to see more of you. It was so beautiful to see all the people who turned up at the show at Sofar on Valentine's Day in Leeds. I can't wait to book some more. Thank you for all of the comments on the episode so far and people who've checked them out. And remember, you can join the conversation on Instagram on the Evergreens channel. I'll see you there. More clips coming of the songs, and thanks for the love on the bits of songs that I've shared with you so far. And if you want to go check it out, head over to @ROB.GREEN Music on Insta, and you can follow me on all social media @ROB.GREEN Music too. Thanks for listening. See you next time.